Hi, Matt from Modern Samurai here again, and today we're going to be taking a look at how to stop attracting violence. Now, first of all, guys, if you like what we're doing, please subscribe, click the bell notification, comment, get involved in the discussion because we want to give you the information that you guys want. So what we're looking at with this is basically why do certain people seem to draw violence towards them, and why are some people more violent than others? Now, one of the things that we need to understand is that is a concept that you hear quite a lot. Yeah, you'll quite often hear, quite often it'll be women, and you'll quite often hear them say how they seem to attract the same sort of guy. Yeah, I'm always getting an arsehole. I'm always getting this guy. I'm always getting the same type of thing. So you're getting and you're attracting and you're drawing a certain behavioural pattern towards you. So that applies to violence as much as everything else. So one of the things we have to sort of understand is, why does that happen? How are we doing that? Okay, now I don't want to get all sort of lifestyle guru-ish or anything like that, and but there is a lot to be said for what you sort of present to the world is what comes back at you. So as an example of that, I had a guy quite a while ago. He came to my gym, and he was a big dude. He worked out in the gym. He'd got tattoos up his neck, and so he was one of those. He presented very arrogantly, and he came in and he's got this tight vest on, bulging muscles, and he walked with this swagger, and he was very confrontational in his approach. And he sat down and he said, I want to do some training, I want to learn how to fight properly because I keep getting into fights. And it was like, okay. So basically what I did at that point is I just started to mirror his behaviors a little. So I adopted some of his physical mannerisms and some of the abruptness in his speech. And so what happened was we started talking, and very quickly he started to become a little bit sort of confrontational. And very soon after that, he actually stopped me dead and said, Matt, why are you acting like an arsehole? Why are you being like this? And it was at that point that I said, actually, all I'm doing is just mirroring what you're giving to me. So the reason that you're getting sort of more irate and more frustrated and more confrontational and aggressive is because you're reacting to my posturing and my vibe that I'm giving out to you, which is an exact mirror of what you're giving out to me. So long story short, I said to this guy, look, I'm happy to train you with some physical skills, but the easiest way to solve your problem is to just not go around giving out that kind of vibration to the world. Don't go around giving out that vibe, because if you do, you're going to attract that kind of people. Now, when we go back into the realms of where you hear that some women are like, oh, I always get the same kind of dickhead. Yeah, it's always this horrible guy. Okay, now again, if we actually look at the science behind that, quite often what that is we go to what's familiar, right? We go to what we know. And so what I mean by that is, if you have been brought up in a difficult relationship, so as an example, say your father was an alcoholic and violent, and there was a lot of violence in the home, and there was a lot of aggression in the home, there was a lot of verbal and physical abuse. Okay, if that person had suffered a lot of emotional abuse, then as they went through the years, what would happen is they would be drawn to that because that's the familiar. So even though they know on a surface level that that's wrong, so if they were finding themselves dating consistently difficult people that were prone to manipulation and emotional violence and things like that, then if you actually talk to them, quite often what you'll find is that's the realm that they grew up in, and because it's familiar, that's why they're drawn to it. Yeah, so they would really struggle without understanding this. They would really struggle to function in a normal, healthy relationship. Now, again, why is this important in self-defense? Well, it's vitally important, because if we can stop attracting negativity, violence, aggression, conflict, if we can stop attracting that towards us, then we have to deal with that a lot less. I would say that was common sense. I would say that was, absolutely vital with regards to self-defense. So we want to be in a position where we're not encouraging that into our world. Now, again, without going into too much detail, for most of you who are watching this, you probably know a little bit about me. For those that don't, I had quite a difficult, challenging upbringing. I worked in security for many years, where violence and confrontation was my bread and butter, and I actively courted that because I took that on as a job role. But what I didn't understand was that I actually needed a certain amount of that in my life, from a mental point of view, from a psychological point of view. It was necessary for me at that point to have that exposure to conflict, violence, aggression, in a weird way, because I was used to that, because that was how I'd developed as a human being, if you will. And so I got into a position where that was actually something I courted, and I didn't realize I was doing it initially. I didn't, until I started really sort of delving into how the mind works when it comes to violence, aggression, and facing fear and all of that sort of thing. It was only when I started exploring those avenues and I'd got past the purely physical, ego-driven stage where, yes, I'm a big guy, yes, I'm 6'2", yes, I'm this sort of size, yes, I can punch people pretty bloody hard, but above and beyond that, I needed to understand the reasons why, so that I could better understand, that I didn't have to resort to that. Okay, and so that's where it was. And when I started looking at it, I was like, well, actually, I'm drawing this to me, and I'm doing that because that's what I'm familiar with. That's my familiar patterns. Okay, and I need to make sure that I step away from that. So we have to understand that for a lot of the time, a lot of the stuff that we're encouraging into our world, okay, it's there because exactly that, because we're encouraging it. And so we need to break down that structure, that habit. We need to understand that we are actually attracting the familiar. And so if the familiar to you is narcissistic behavior, or addictive behaviors, or violence behaviors, or manipulating behaviors, if that is the familiar to you, then you have to recognize that, and you have to step out of that, and you have to step back from that, and you have to see that that is something that you are actively courting, before you can then start to change that. But also as well, you've got to understand the dynamic of how that works in any kind of new relationship, because what will happen, the person, they will push the boundaries, they will give a little nudge. Yeah, it doesn't just happen boom like this with this huge overwhelm. So if you're in a nightclub environment, just for the sake, because we were talking about that, so if you're a working security person, then occasionally you will get that whoosh, and it'll just go like that, and the person will instantly try to enforce his will on you through violence or aggression, or bullying behavior, or manipulation, or any number of things, right? But that's a sort of condensed microcosm of the world at large. But more than likely, with regards to relationships, what actually happens is it's a slow decline. So they will start off, and then they will nudge a bit, and they will see where that takes them, and they will see your reaction to that. So that's the equivalent to the interview in a self-defense situation. So in a self-defense situation, the interview is usually pretty quick, where they will determine whether or not you are going to be a victim, and that's done quite quickly. Within a relationship, actually, usually that takes a little bit longer. And if you find somebody that's familiar with that kind of setup, then what happens is they actively seek that out, and it makes them feel like they're used to that, and they're comfortable with that, even though it sounds ridiculous, because why would anybody be comfortable with that? But the actual truth is, these people are drawn together because they kind of know how each other works, and they kind of know each other's mind. And so the manipulator, the physically violent person, the person that uses emotional aggression to coerce people into what they're doing, what they want, that sort of thing, right? They will push the boundaries. They will push to see how far they can take it. And if that other person doesn't draw a line somewhere in that, then that's where that then becomes that very destructive relationship that people often find themselves in repeatedly. And then they tell all their mates that, oh, I can't understand it, I just always get an arsehole. Why is that? Well, the answer is, it's you. And a lot of the time when it comes to violence, when it comes to attracting violence towards you, that's you as well. So when it comes to self-defense, guys, try to understand that quite often it's our actions and it's how we present to the world that comes back to us. Okay, so as I said, I'm not trying to be some sort of guru kind of thing with this, but I do believe that more and more as I go through, and the more I learn and understand about this, the more it becomes relevant to the conversation. So guys, if you're struggling like that, have a little think about some of these things and see if any of this can be applied to what you do, what you teach, how you model your self-defense skills, whatever that may be. All right, guys. So as always, hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe. Click the bell, leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Let us know what other conversations you'd like us to have, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one.